The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Stewart Information Services Corporation, Stewart Title, or Stewart Insurance. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
Whether you're a real estate broker, realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, everything matters when it comes to real estate. This is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Stewart Title's Bill Knapik and guests open the door to what really matters in owning, buying, and selling real estate. And now, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. Here to inform, entertain, and inspire, Bill Knapik.
Welcome to the show. It is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. I am your host, Bill Knapik. Thank you for joining us. I want to say this is show number 490. We're getting close to show number 500, and we thank you for joining us here on Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. You are in for a treat. I do want to say, as always, check out the shows. You can see and hear the shows. Go to the show archives by simply going to Stewart.com/radio. That's Stewart.com/radio. And let's get down to business right now, as this show is a Stewart Title distinction, and our guest, Dr. Ted C. Jones, he too is a Stewart Title distinction. Ted is the chief economist at Stewart Title now for 26 years. He was the former chief economist at the Texas Real Estate Research Center at A&M. He is also known as the eighth wonder in the real estate world. So let's welcome Dr. Ted C. Jones. Here we are again. Ted, welcome.
Well, honored to be here. It's always a fun show to do, Bill. I always enjoy your questions. And, man, I love talking about real estate. In fact, but remember my theme this year is the good, the bad, and the ugly. There we go. Yeah.
And it continues, too.
It does. Without question, it continues.
Well, here we are. It's always exciting, and people await to... As you do speeches, let's tell people, you do how many? Several hundred?
200 a year.
200 a year. So you're doing speeches, not just here in Houston, Texas, but I know right here in Houston, as I attend as many as I can during your season of speeches, so to speak, that people await, and you have record numbers of people, realtors, real estate professionals alike, that want to hear and see what you're doing because you are always studying real estate. It's in your blood for many, many decades now.
It is. You know, even this year, for example, the furthest northwest I've been to give a presentation in the U.S. is Fairbanks, Alaska. Furthest northeast is Maine, Portland, Maine. Furthest, and just 4 weeks ago, I was speaking to New York Stock Exchange, a group of our commercial customers. Furthest south is Miami, and the furthest southwest would be Phoenix. So, yeah, it's kind of, and everything in between. So, yeah, it's been a fun year.
Well, before we start with what's going on in the market, since you mentioned Alaska, just give us a quick word. I've never been to Alaska, but, hey, they have real estate up there, no doubt. What's the real estate like in Alaska?
Well, in the wintertime, pretty frozen when I'm there. In fact, I have to tell you about people. I always said this. There's three kinds of people that are can-do people. They don't care what it is. Texans are one of those. Alaskans are one of those. Australians are one of those. And every time I speak in Australia and Alaska, I said, y'all are neat people, but you're crazy as hell to live here in the wintertime, except y'all also have funny accents, because they all do. But they're really neat people. But remember, a lot of difference in Alaska, for example, if you're in real estate, you got about 6 months to make all your money, whether you're brokering or anything else like that. And in building, man, you got to get that foundation out of the ground and closed in before, literally May to September. You don't have anything to finish out the next year. And then they've got issues like permafrost, everything else, issues we cannot think of. You want to talk about supply chain issues. You think it's tough when Home Depot or your local hardware store is out of a knob. Try to get one flown into, where there's not even a road in place and it's going to be flown in. It's the only way it's going to get there. So, yeah, very innovative people, but a lot of real estate there.
So let's tell people, as we think, everyone wants to know how the market is in their area. So here we are. Let's start with Houston, Texas. Your perspective of the marketplace as you see it right now.
I'm going to tell you, I think we have a pretty ordinary market, but we got to define what normal was. And the last normal time we saw was 2019. And 2020 was an anomaly. We get the pandemic and sales, we'll just do housing to begin with. Sales plunged because no one knew what was going to happen. You go back to mid-March 2020, March, April, May, June sales were just abysmal. People were scared to death. And then we realized, hey, if we're going to live at home for a long time, all by ourselves here, let's live in a nice home. And sales exploded. So 2020 was an anomaly. 2021 was the year of all the stimulus. And we ended up no place to go and lots of money in our pockets, and we spent it on housing. 2022, I call it the year of stupidity. And when I say that, we weren't getting all the stimulus anymore. We're going back to normal, but we were still spending like we were still getting the stimulus. And I want to take people back to, the first 6-8 months of 2022. If you wanted a home, whether it was Houston or Austin or Dallas or any San Antonio, you offered anywhere from between $40,000 and $100,000 over asking price. You waived all the inspection requirements, the appraisal. You even waived that I don't even have to qualify for a loan, and I'll work that out no matter how it was. But we also saw the lowest interest rates in history too. January of 2021, the first week, 30-year mortgage rates hit 2.65%. Oh my goodness, for 30 years. And if you've got one of those loans, congratulations. I don't think we'll ever see that number again unless we were to have some similar occurrence, which is, my lifetime is pretty close to zero since the pandemic happens on average about every 100 years. So now what we have is, go to 2023, and I'll just give you the Houston Association of Realtors' latest numbers from July of this year, hot off the presses. What we're looking at, total listings are up 13.2% from year over year. They're still not where they used to be. We used to think 6 months was normal. We now have 3.2 months. But I think that because of technology and the way we look at homes all online, we don't need as much inventory because you can shop the market very quickly. Our sales, so inventory up 13.2% year over year. This is single family. Total number of sales down 8.3%, but pretty much where it was in July of 2019 after that wild roller coaster ride, the feast, the ugly and the great, and we're at. So I kind of like that we're back to a normal market. Median prices down 2.3% year over year. It's a little bit tougher if you throw in about that 5%, 4% inflation rate, but that's okay. Part of that is the median prices being skewed by not that your value of your home went down, just because our monthly payment has gone up so much from 2020, for example, that we just buy a cheaper home. It used to be that when rates were 2.65%, you could make an offer on any home you wanted almost because the monthly payment was so little. And now we're sitting here this past week, Freddie Mac said that the average 30-year mortgage rate commitment issued in the last 7 days was 7.09%. Highest in 20 years, folks. Highest in 20 years. Still cheap compared to 1982, 1983 through 1990, but in comparison, it's tough. And so we're looking at that. We're doing good, and it's a great time to be in Houston. Nationwide, let's just do a quick comparison on that one because that can be, an interesting. You just don't look at yourself in that. We don't have, at least in my computer right now, I don't have the July sales from NAR. Year to date, they're down 23%. This past June compared to last June was down 18.9%. So what it says is that we are doing better than the U.S. in Houston, Texas. Median price only down 0.9% year over year. So great time to be in Houston, great time to be in Texas.
And are we doing better because we're in Houston or because we're in Texas?
The answer is yes.
Or both.
Yeah.
Are they doing well in Dallas and San Antonio?
They're doing both extremely well. Intriguing in Austin, Texas. Remember I told you I called 2022 the year of stupidity? We saw literally, you wanted to buy a home in the first 8-9 months in Austin of 2022. You offered $100,000 over the asking price. It waived everything. And we're actually seeing that year-over-year price, according to the Real Estate Center, Texas Real Estate Research Center, it's down over $83,000 the median price. And another phenomenon, too, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it was a neat picture I saw on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it, the new Twitter. It showed the number of listings for sale in Austin, and it showed the number of overnight rentals like VRBO and Airbnb. We had 4 times as many Airbnbs as we had homes for sale. So we've changed how we utilize housing. That means we've taken a large number of single-family homes out of inventory for homeowners, and now they're for investors in a completely different business model. And then the other thing that's changed, and this has changed over the last 20 years, but it really changed in 2009 and 2010, when the bubble in housing burst. And I want to wind you back to 2004 through 2007. It was the next get-rich scheme I've seen in my lifetime. I've seen ostriches. I've seen you're going to raise minks. You're going to get rich. I've seen you're going to get gold. I've seen exotic cattle. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, it was you own a house, you get rich quick in real estate. And when that bubble burst, we literally saw some markets that were so dramatically overbuilt, they were selling for 40 or 50 cents on the dollar they paid for them. And what kind of bailed us out of that dip tremendous plunge? But all of a sudden, Wall Street realized, hey, I'm going to buy an asset for 40 cents to 50 cents of what it cost to build it. And we had BlackRock and Blackstone and companies like that came in, and they bought hundreds of thousands of homes. And they said, we'll keep them for 3 years, and we'll sell them back to people that own them originally. We're going to rent them. And at the end of 3 years, they realized this is such a great return. So we created a new class of commercial investment real estate called single-family rentals. And so that's taken a bit of our owner-occupied housing off the market because many people don't have the down payment. And folks, let's be honest, if you're not going to live here 3 years or more, you really got to question, should I buy a home? If I know that 3 years or less from now I'm going to be gone, you got to cover transaction costs. And nowhere is it written that home prices were guaranteed to go up. So you look at all those big pictures, and we're looking at a single-family housing market that in the last 12, 15, 20 years has changed dramatically. But if you're talking about Houston in particular, we're doing great shape without question.
We're talking to our chief economist at Stewart Title, Dr. Ted C. Jones. Ted, you say it all the time on this show, and when you do your presentations, you may know what I'm going to say. You say jobs, jobs, jobs. It's about jobs. So as we're talking about Texas, and of course right now we just said Houston, I'm going to ask, are there still lots of jobs and opportunities for people here in Houston? And then what about, again, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio? Are there jobs there for people that are moving to these cities, but especially Houston? We'll start with that.
The reason they're moving here, there are jobs. It's all about jobs. And I say this every time in my speeches. I give it almost every time. Almost everyone needs a job to buy a home. There's three kinds of people that don't need a job to buy a home. They have blue hair, gray hair, or no hair. They're typically retirees. Pretty much everyone else does. Go back to 2022. Texas was the number one inbound state for U-Hauls. Now, who uses a U-Haul? They're young. They don't have much wealth. It's first, second, third job. They're not earning as much as they will in their career. We're the number one inbound state, second year in a row. And in fact, 3 years in 2020, the only time we didn't get that number one slot in recent history was Florida became number one. And that was a change because we've never had young people moving mass to Florida. It was all older people.
On the East Coast, yeah.
Yeah. They use things such as United Van Lines because they're older, they're wealthier, or they're corporate relocations. So we've had this phenomenon. We'll just talk Texas because I think this applies across the state without question. I've been in most of the state this year already. Let's look at how the U.S. economy performed from the month before the pandemic to now. We're up a couple million jobs. We're up a couple percent. But here's the states. We're going to compare February 2020 through July 2023. Latest numbers available, hot off the presses this week. Idaho has 10.3% more jobs than the month before the pandemic. Can you imagine that? For every 10 jobs you had before the pandemic, just the second before it dropped, you now have another job in addition to the 10 you had before. Number two, Utah up 9.7%, Florida up 7.8%, Texas up 7.7%. We're the fourth best in the country. Wow, that's phenomenal. It's all about jobs. And we still have 14 states in the District of Columbia that still do not have as many jobs as they had before the pandemic. The worst of all of them, Hawaii. And that's not surprising because they were mainly leisure and hospitality based. And you get mainly leisure and hospitality base, and that's the thing that bit the bullet the hardest at the onset of the pandemic because we quit traveling. Now, we're back on leisure and hospitality, but we've changed our business models. You go to a hotel for 3-4 nights in a row, they used to clean your room every day. Some high-end hotels would have turn-down service twice a day, that type thing. You check into a hotel on a Monday and check out on a Thursday. If you want clean towels, you go to the front desk and you get them. I don't care how high-end it is, almost. That's pretty much the rule. So we don't need as many people in the leisure and hospitality industry as we used to have.
Well, as far as other cities or other states, and one of the ones I'm thinking about is Tennessee. I hear at one time, as we heard about all the people, and maybe still now, that are coming from California. I talked to a realtor in Tennessee, and she was not familiar with what's happening in Houston, but she says it's almost like there's a bridge from California to Nashville at the time. Now, this is about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, but I'm wondering about Tennessee because they seem to have, I don't know their jobs, but they seem to have a lot of favorable conditions, no state income tax, nice weather, 4 distinct seasons, and it's not too brutal of a winter, I don't think. So,
correct.
But what's happening there in Tennessee, specifically?
Well, let's just do this. Let's look at the latest 12 months. Forget the Nashville side, because look at the state. Because the state, all of Tennessee is doing well. All of Texas is doing well.
And by the way, I think they opened the largest Buc-ee's there. I
think it's true.
Yes.
Yeah. In the latest 12 months, the number one state for job growth, this is July 2022 through July 2023, Nevada, 3.8%. Texas was number 2, 3.3%. Tennessee was 2.2%. So we're producing 50% more job growth percentage-wise than Tennessee is, and Tennessee's a great economy. It's all about jobs.
But Nevada, you talk about leisure and hospitality, you're saying Nevada's doing well?
It was, and a lot of it's gambling without question. A lot of it are companies leaving California. You think about it, Nevada's one of those 7 states that doesn't have a state income tax. And we're seeing a large number of businesses continue to bail from California, heading in Nevada. Yes.
So let's say let's go back to Houston. If you are a real estate professional, specifically a realtor right here in our wonderful city of Houston, Texas, and I know the realtors, when they go and see you speak, they're always wondering about their future, as anybody would be in their profession, but they always wonder about the future. And I would say in the last few years, the realtors have enjoyed a nice living all the way around. I don't really think it's stopping, but what would you tell realtors, because they listen to the show, they want to know what's going on from you. What would you tell them as far as the outlook and what's happening right now?
So full disclosure, I was chairman of the Houston Association of Realtors in 2004. I've never sold real estate for a living, period. The Houston Association of Realtors is the most innovative association of realtors in the United States of America. Bob Hell, the president and CEO, trade side head of that, is the most innovative person you'll ever see. And they've had incredible elected leaderships in the past. People, now think about this. Before I ever came on the board, Association of Realtors, Houston was the first association in the United States that put a consumer-facing website out. They took down the sign right across, on then I-59, right across from Joel Osteen's church. Before that, it was the Rockets' home. If you think about this, they took down a sign that said the Houston Association of Realtors is the number one traffic location in the state of Texas on that road at that point in time. They put up HAR.com, 35,000 homes available for sale. Oh, my goodness. And you talk about innovation because it allowed anyone, any place, whether today they didn't have iPhones in or iPads, but you can search for a house on sale online. Houston was the innovative one on that one. So now let's talk about realtors. And this is an intriguing thing. We got more jobs any time in history in the U.S. We have a third less manufacturing jobs today than we had in 1979 US. So when you hear that, we brought all these manufacturing jobs back, we brought back a few recently, but we're still down a third from the peak in 1979. But right now, we have more people working in real estate. That's real estate, property management, both commercial and residential, and housing than any time in history. And I remember calling up Bob Hell a couple of weeks ago. I said, explain that to me. And he says, well, a lot of uncertainty out there. It's the biggest acquisition purchase of your lifetime. And people want to make sure they're fully informed to do that. So you hire that consummate local professional realtor. Even when I buy real estate outside of Houston, I go to the local realtors there. They see the market. And I'm a reformed appraiser. I used to have my own appraisal company. We'd confirm sales. But I always said that the selling agent or broker knew more about that transaction than anyone. And the reason was they saw the motives of the buyer and seller. So when you want to talk about the consummate professional, you go to that local top productive realtor and find out about the local marketplace that they specialize in.
Because that's something you can't get with artificial intelligence or anything else right now.
Exactly right. That consummate real estate professional is invaluable to you in that transaction, whether you're buying or selling.
And of course, like you said, it's the knowledge. In fact, you're talking about Bob Hale. He was just in the Houston Business Journal talking with two full pages about artificial intelligence. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not, but yeah. But I'm not surprised.
Well, but it's interesting, too. There are sectors and marketplaces where artificial intelligence is a real threat, and one of them is the Hollywood writers. And I don't know, for the very first time, someone mentioned on this show about Chat GPT or GPI, whatever it is. So I investigated that just 2 weeks ago. It is amazing.
It is.
What it can do. I put in something like, give me a dialogue between my dog and myself about going across the street. In 2 seconds, there was a whole script. I'm thinking, I am glad I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
Because it's insane what it can do. Well, give us another thing. As far as, let's go back to realtors, specifically here in Texas, or really anywhere they could use this. But if you were a real estate professional, knowing what you know, and I know that you have many resources that you are constantly touching and watching and websites and so forth. But to keep it simple, maybe one or two things for a Houston realtor that you would use if you were that Houston realtor as a resource, whether it's a website or something where they can get information that is a go-to for sure that you recommend.
So one of the best ones, and of course,
well, HR.com would be one.
HR.com is one of them without question, particularly if you're a realtor member, the sales statistics and metrics you have there. An infamous one we have in the state of Texas, because it's the best real estate research center in the United States of America, is the Texas Real Estate Research Center. In fact, if you want to go there, go to recenter.tamu.edu. And you're going to see, and it's been a consortium. They have building permit data from the U.S. Census Bureau. They have housing sales from all the MLSs in Texas, and it's really pristine data. They made sure they didn't double count sales. They didn't double count listings. They use a lot of computer assisted to make sure we don't have duplication or omissions and things like that. If you're into rural land, which has been a hot commodity, then Dr. Charlie Gillen, originally Dr. Ivan Schmedeman, then Charlie Gillen, now Dr. Lynn Krebs, they keep track of 33 regional land market areas in Texas, and you can track about what's selling kind of in aggregate, what the expectations are and everything else. The Real Estate Center, Texas Real Estate Research Center, does a vast amount of research, both for the real estate professional industry and consumers in Texas. Another great site.
We're talking with Dr. Ted C. Jones, our chief economist at Stewart Title, and he has been with our company 26 years. He is the eighth wonder in the real estate world, and we're going to continue right after this.
If you're a real estate professional, then listen closely. Cyber criminals are targeting our industry. They are impersonating real estate professionals, homebuyers, sellers, and title agents. Their goal is to gain access to your inboxes, computers, and clients so they can steal information and funds. Does your business insurance offset these risks? Not sure? Contact Stewart Insurance to determine if your business is properly insured. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
As we continue talking to our chief economist at Stewart Title, Dr. Ted C. Jones. He is the eighth wonder of the real estate world. Ted, let's tell people. Here it is. Last week or so, Wall Street Journal, highest interest rates. They reported in 20 years. That makes you think about affordability. When I think about affordability, I think about the interest rates for the residential buyer, whether it's an individual or a family, but also even the cash buyer. They only have so much cash, so affordability is very important.
Affordability is a function of three things. It's your whatever it costs you're going to buy, the interest rate or the amount of cash you had, and what mortgage rates are. Well, let's just do this one. You go back to 1989. I was chief economist at the real estate center at Texas A&M, living in College Station. Had a neat Texas country house built, metal roof, big porch in College Station, all that kind of stuff. Went to closing in November of 89, and I was thrilled. I got a 9.75% 30-year fixed rate loan. First time in over 10 years it had been below 10%. But at that point in time, our prices were a lot cheaper. So if you looked at it, we were spending about 28% of our gross income on our monthly mortgage principal interest payment. Let's fast forward to right now. Even though interest rates are a lot lower, they were, before last week, they were below 7%. So like 50%, a third lower than they were beforehand. But prices had gone up so much and incomes hadn't gone up so much that all of a sudden that new buyer, instead of spending 28%, was spending 33% of their income on that. So affordability is a function of that. So now let's fast forward to kind of a neat study. It's from Bloomberg. It includes data from Haver Analytics, CoreLogic, great real estate data company, Morgan Stanley Research. So it's just not stocks and bonds, it's research. And they said, what does it take to get back to the affordability we had? Let's do from 2010 or 2009 through 2019. Now, notice that's after the real estate bubble burst and before COVID happened. So it was kind of a really affordable time to buy housing, and we bought a lot then, but not record amount at all. What does it take to get back that? And so that was that 10-year pre-COVID return. And what they learned was that if you just want to talk about price, if interest rates aren't going to change, your income's not going to change, to get back to that level of affordability we had from 2009 to 2019, median price has to drop 41%. That's not going to happen. I don't see median prices dropping 41%. I think I forecast this year they'd be down 5%, and I'm probably forecast down too much because we're looking at down roughly 1.7% year to date. That same study, again, the Bloomberg, Haver Analytics, CoreLogic, Morgan Stanley Research, they said if only income changes, just to get the income level to make it as affordable it was between 2009 and 2019, income has to increase 69%. That's not going to happen. So that'd be so inflationary if it did. Of course, prices would go up if our income went up that much too. And then the third leg on that stool, interest rates. And our current rate is, as of last Thursday, was 7.09%, according to Freddie Mac. They said for us to get back to the affordability level, it'd have to drop 4.3%. That'd be 430 basis points, which means we'd be down roughly, think about this, like in the threes. I don't see that happening. So what I'm trying to tell you is our affordability picture has changed. We used to have cheap housing compared to the world. We're kind of up there now. And I don't see that going away a lot. But I also don't see median prices moving up strongly. I don't see income moving up strongly. And I don't see interest rates moving down strongly. Now, that said, you want to look at it, Fannie Mae doesn't think we'll hit below 6% until next year in the fourth quarter. So they're saying we're staying in the sixes. MBA is much more optimistic. They're saying we'll get down in the 6% range, in the 5% range, second, third, and fourth quarter next year. But then I have a model, and you may have seen it this past week. One of the Wall Street firms said, 30-year mortgage rates could go to 8% plus. So I got this model. I got a PhD in finance, minor in statistics. You got to model stuff. We got to put that gizmo-wismo stuff to work every once in a while, econometric modeling. And what I do is I forecast 30-year rates based on the Fed funds rate, which we know what it is right now. I base it. It's also, so it's looking at the Fed funds rate, and it's looking at the 10-year Treasury rate. By the way, the 10-year Treasury rates last Friday hit the highest rate in 15 years, too. That was not anticipated. And I can explain 90% of all the weekly variability since 2018 in 30-year rates if I know those other two. And they say that my mortgage rate right now should be above, little above 8%. So we could see in the short run between now and the end of the year, beginning of next year, rates trickle on up because we're seeing our treasury rates go up too. It's intriguing to see that. I'm going to tell you this. Nobody knows. Nobody knows where rates are going to go. Fannie Mae thinks they'll go up. MBA thinks they'll go down. And I think they're going to go up a little bit more than Fannie Mae thinks they're going to go up.
You're right. Nobody knows. And if you think about what happened just the last 3 years, no one could have seen any of this coming because it's been such a unique period in time. Now, I have purposely not watched politics for a lot of reasons. However, there's an election year coming up. So when that happens, some people say, oh, well, rates will never go up in an election prior to. So from your analysis and studies through the years, what should we expect pre the next presidential election in terms of interest rate or any other real estate factors?
So you're from this November.
Okay, here we go.
So there we go.
Okay.
So let's talk about it. Yeah, I think if you're running for office, if you're in office, you want lower rates. If you're out of office, you want higher rates so that you can tell them that it's their fault that there's higher rates. And so it's just, you tell me which chicken or egg comes first on this one. In reality, the Fed is really manipulating our rates rather competently right now. Remember, the Federal Reserve, let's just dispel some myths. The Federal Reserve is a for-profit, privately owned bank. The U.S. government does not own it. The Fed chairman, think of the board of directors of a publicly traded company, privately owned, so to speak, owned by shareholders. The only difference is the CEO and chairman of the board is appointed by the president. That's Powell, our current Fed chairman. And each of the 12 Federal Reserve banks are basically, their heads are appointed by Congress. And the Fed has two jobs, period. Job number one, let's make sure we have full employment. And they've defined historically that full employment is when your unemployment rate is between 5 and 5.5%. Our current unemployment rate's 3.5%, so we're way better than full employment. It's one of the problems, they say, that we've got so much inflation because we don't have enough workers. We have to pay these workers more money, and we're seeing that
especially in the food industry.
Which drives up interest rates. You talked about burgers earlier. Think what burgers cost us in the good old days. Who remembers 15-cent hamburgers from McDonald's?
I was just going to say, we were talking cents. Yeah, 10, 15 cent. And the fries, that's right. Well, there's that burger barometer that we talked about.
We talked about that.
So
the Federal Reserve, number one, full employment. So we're better than that. And number two, control inflation. And Bernanke was the one that released to us that they really want to keep inflation down to 2% or less. We're currently at 3% change. But be careful here. When I say our inflation rate's at 3.5%, that's on the consumer price index. It's a basket of goods, including your rent, that the government says if you buy this every month, and we compare it month to month to month, then we can tell you how much more it costs. It's only a little shopping cart full of goods and services. The Federal Reserve uses this thing called Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index. It includes a lot more goods and services. It's more representative of what you spend every month. And that's actually gone up the last 2 months. So while we get this great political news, wow, inflation's going down, yeah, behind the scenes, the inflation number that the Fed looks at is going up. So I don't think that's a slam dunk deal that the Fed at all this year is going to cut rates, and probably not at the beginning of next year. And there's still that debate out. Are we going to have a recession the end of this year or beginning of next year? We don't know that yet. But by the way, I want to talk to you about burgers.
Let's talk burgers.
I used to have, I call it the drive-through coefficient, to tell you I could go to any town and in 5 minutes tell you how good the economy was. This is like 30 years ago. And it was, I have a drinking problem, and it's fresh brewed iced tea. I love fresh brewed iced tea. So drive up to any window. And in town 30 years ago, and they might say that, for example, a large glass of tea at the drive-up window was $1.26. So you had them $2.82. If they make change immediately at the drive-through window, that economy is awful because even smart people are working drive-up windows. If, on the other hand, that person takes like 3 minutes or 4 minutes and has to get the help of 2 or 3 other people to give you change, you realize this economy is so good, even idiots have jobs. So I called it, if I used to give this in my speeches, and people would say, yep, it worked. It's true. You're right. But, we just don't have workers right now. And so We have a lot of people. I have a slide in my deck I'm using right now. McDonald's is paying at one place, yes, $21 an hour. And I love this other slide in my deck on my speeches. McDonald's now hiring people that show up. It's tough on business people to do business day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, burgers it's part of America. However, I know that there are companies, I won't mention names, but I do know that there's one burger company that's adding between now and the end of the year 49 stores. That's their plan in the United States. I've researched the burger industry. There's 91,000 or so chain burger restaurants right now, and they have like a 6% growth from 2022 or up to 2022. The industry has grown by 6%, and then they opened up another burger place by my house, the Shake Shack. So it's fascinating, and I don't know what that tells us about, I guess, that people, love burgers, but also these companies are putting their money in hard real estate to build the stores. They believe in it, but they're still having the problem, like you're saying, with the workers to get.
We are having that problem, and I love burgers. All American sandwich. Let's be honest about it.
It's a meal in your hand.
That's exactly right. And I don't care whether it's a Whataburger or an In-N-Out or Shake Shack or any of the other really neat. And let's be honest, each of those has cult followings.
Sure.
Throw in Chick-fil-A and a couple of those like that, and it's beyond just food.
Well, Ted, we have about 3 minutes before we close this segment. We'll bring you back at the end of the show. What else should we know?
A lot of uncertainty out here, folks. You mentioned earlier we've got an election year, and by the way, if you're a Democrat or Republican, I have a problem with you because we're not getting the full story, and that's a problem we have. It's election year, uncertainty. I think it's time that you really kind of keep your head a little bit low. I mean, if things get tough, which they may not at all, at least you're batting down the hatches. Keep some powder dry. Man, there's going to be some deals to be had. There's some people that aren't going to be able to make their payments. The good news is they have equity in their homes. Those things will come on the market. And then lastly, I want to talk about, remember how we talked earlier that housing has changed so dramatically. It used to be we owned it, single-family housing, you didn't rent it. And a lot of people now are investing in single-family housing, but I have a rule. If you want to buy a house to rent it out and make money, it really needs to rent for 1% of its market value per month. So a $200,000 home needs rent for $2,000 a month. You need to be able to, whether you use your own money to all cash or borrow money to do it, got to be able to pay your property taxes, your insurance, your repairs. Just think about this. If you want to get in that business, 1% per month rent, particularly in Texas and Houston, Texas today.
We're talking with Dr. Ted C. Jones, our chief economist at Stewart Title, and a Stewart Title distinction, just like this radio show is. Ted, let's tell people they can follow you on, what's it called? It's not Twitter anymore, but they can follow you on that.
The big black X, the Twitter, yeah. Just go to DRTCJ, at DRTCJ on Twitter or X, what do you want to call it. I also have a blog. Just Google Jones on Real Estate. It'll take you to Stewart.com and take you right to my blog site.
And you have top 10 lists, all sorts of great things that relate to real estate. You're doing super work for Stewart Title. We appreciate you all the time, and I know everyone out there is awaiting your schedule. They want to know, they're going to want to check with our business development people, not just in Houston, but around the country to find out where you're going to be speaking. So that's always fun. Ted, once again, Jones on Real Estate, Google. Thank you so much, Dr. Ted C. Jones. And oh, yeah, we have another Aggie that's going to follow you, so that everyone in this room is an Aggie except me.
Well,
but I'm an honorary one. I was told.
Like I say, the best Aggie joke I ever heard. What do you call an Aggie 5 years after they graduate? The answer is boss.
There you go, Dr. Ted C. Jones. Thank you, Ted. Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title would not be possible without our partner, Stewart Insurance. With a focus in real estate and a special focus on real estate brokers, Stewart Insurance creates insurance plans to address the risks facing our industry today. They invest a significant amount of time helping real estate broker owners and offset and manage their risks. John Bramlett with Stewart Insurance is here once again. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill. Always a pleasure.
Economics, real estate, insurance, everybody's favorite subject.
Nirvana. In the classes that I've been teaching the last month or so.
And I know you've been busy.
And I've been busy. And just in the real estate professionals that I've been visiting with, regardless of the topic, regardless of the conversation, insurance premiums come up. They want to know why it's costing more money. They want to know why it's costing more money. And I know that we've talked a bit about that this year on several occasions on the show, but there was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal that did a really nice job of providing some additional insight. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about that today. So the basic reason why we're seeing an increase in premiums is that the insurance companies are losing money, and they have been for the last 5 or 6 years. So they are not nonprofit organizations. They are for-profit businesses, and they've been losing money. So then the next question comes in is why? How can an insurance company lose money? And there's several reasons. One, if you just think about the number of storms that we've had over the last 5 or 6 years, and the beyond the storms and national disasters. I mean, look at California right now. I mean, they're going to have a double whammy of a tropical depression, tropical storm in California, and then Hawaii with those horrible fires. We've seen now the increase in inflation. We've got supply chain issues that have haunted us since 2019. We've seen more aggressive drivers during the pandemic that have stayed aggressive drivers, so we had more instances on the road. And then just the pandemic itself. I mean, those alone are things that have been driving up premiums. And in the article, they talked about not only what the causes were, but some of the trends that the insurance companies and those that follow the industry feel like they're going to take place. So we're going to continue to see higher premiums. You're going to see higher deductibles. You're going to see tougher underwriting guidelines. So you're going to have to meet more criteria and potentially different criteria than you had in the past in order to be insured. There's going to be a greater expectation on the consumer. The insurance companies are going to expect more out of us as consumers. We've seen that the last few years on the business insurance side, but we're starting to see that more and more on the consumer side for your personal insurance. We're going to see higher costs across the board and lower coverages. And it's not just Florida and California, but it's any state that has a propensity for flooding or hurricane or wildfires. In fact, since 2022, we've seen 31 states approve premium increases of 20 to 30%. And Texas is in that 30% range. For what it's worth, mine this past year increased 26%, my personal insurance costs.
Well, just a week or so ago, I got off the phone with one of your associates at Stewart Insurance, and my rate was, I'm like, how did it get this high? And one of the good thing was, because Stewart Insurance is a broker, we looked at it and we shaved maybe $500 off a very high price. Still, it's high, but by having you being able to use Stewart Insurance, being able to go to several companies, I was able to shave that down a little bit to take some of the sting away.
Well, and it is a sting because, we mentioned, the damages that we've seen over the last 3 years or so. Well, one of the studies showed that those damages equate to about $90 billion. So $90 billion in insurable damages. The other challenge that they're seeing is insurance companies buy reinsurance. So insurance companies buy insurance to help make sure that they can cover whatever claims that they have. And because of all the things that we've talked about, the cost of reinsurance has gone up 33 to 50%. Insurance companies are having to pay more on claims on the front end, and it's costing them more for their support of their coverage on the back end. Therefore, we're paying for it.
I think the beauty, though, Stewart Insurance, we're able to talk to an associate that's knowledgeable. They're up to speed on these things. And as people are renewing, I know someone paying, I just heard about $1,000 for car insurance per month. Now, they have a driver in the family that's in their 20s that had an accident. So, but yeah, a lot of money is being spent on insurance. So we have to always be careful and make sure we use our money wisely and spend it wisely when it comes to insurance, because there are things we can do.
There are, and part of it is there is a responsibility as an individual. So, if you have a poor driving record, if you have a history of number of claims on your property, if you have poor money management, which results in the poor credit score, you're going to have to pay more for your insurance if you can get it. And that's where, as you were kind enough to mention, working with an independent broker like Stewart Insurance that has access to a variety of companies that we can work with we can understand that some companies are increasing deductible, or some companies are changing roof replacement costs to actual cash value, or roof eligibility. Some instances are less likely to write older homes. So knowing which of those companies there are is helpful. The other thing is that you will see from time to time some reduction in premium, and people will get excited about it until they actually compare what the coverage is. And the coverage is decreased so much in order to save you money, but you've got to be willing at this point to say, fine, I'm comfortable being self-insured. And if you're not comfortable self-insuring, then you need to take a look at what that cost can be. Because yes, you might save a few dollars, but if the coverage is not what you need or what you want, that's critical. So then that goes back to the idea of being properly insured. That as long as you're comfortable with the coverage you have or don't have, and you're aware of what you're taking on yourself versus you're passing on to the insurance company, then in our world you're properly insured. But that's even more critical in today's market.
One of the things you said earlier, and I like to do this when we have mortgage professionals on, I always hope, you said there's things that we can do, and certainly we're speaking mostly of adults, but I always hope that when people hear the show that there might be youngsters listening, or that the adult that is listening is instilling some of these things into the children, and that is, pay your bills, build your credit score, do these things that you're supposed to do. So I hope every now and then that we can affect someone that's young so that they build the proper discipline so that life's a little bit easier and they're informed and they're not paying the premiums for having bad habits.
Well, exactly.
So we try to help, right, John?
We do, and I think there's things like asking the right kind of questions. So being able to not just take something for granted, but be willing to ask the questions, but also understanding the types of questions that you want to ask. And, having that financial literacy is helpful, but also having a support mechanism, whether it be a great realtor, a great lender, or a great insurance advisor to help you answer some of those questions can be really helpful.
As you're out there with your schedule, you're doing a lot of this education in the real estate community, so people can reach out to you if they're in the real estate world, they're a broker, they want to have some of your continuing education classes, so you're doing a super part.
Well, it's important to us that we believe in reciprocity, and we believe in the fact that you have to give, that we need to serve first, and that's important to us as our corporate core. That's a key element of our core, is that we want to make sure that we're giving first. So whether it be information for a home buyer so that they can make the proper decision on their insurance, or if it's information for an investor and they're looking to buy several homes for investment properties. It could be somebody starting a title and attorney agency, starting a real estate broker. We can help with those questions and answers about their business insurance or their personal insurance, as well as then we can help real estate professionals in Texas with their continuing education classes and make sure that they're up to speed on what's happening in the market and provide some additional nuggets that can help them truly serve their clients better.
And by the way, for another show, but I did read about cybercrime hitting the small businesses more and more, and that includes real estate brokers. For another time, but before we close this segment, John, what else should we know? You love to hear. There's so many things to talk about. We can't get to them all. So in the meantime, what else should we know, John?
Well, the key is that premiums aren't going to go down, at least not for a few years. It's important that you understand the coverage you need, whether it be for your real estate business or for you as an individual or your family. Then second is it's important to have a partner in the insurance world that can help you walk through those options so you can make better decisions. And we would love that opportunity to be that partner. And you can reach us at 866-798-2827. That's 866-798-2827. You can learn more about us at stewartinsurance.com or email us at stewartinsurance@stewart.com.
And two other distinctions. One, you're helping people not just in Houston, Texas, but around the United States, providing insurance. And, one of the things that I like and have experienced several times as I've been renewing is you can call the number and people answer the phone.
Yes.
You don't have to go through a million voice prompts. I love that.
That is correct. When during normal business hours, we always have somebody that's there to answer the phone, and more often than not, it'll be Isabella, and she's fantastic.
She is fantastic. The number again is
866-798-2827.
Thank you, John Bramlett.
Appreciate it, Bill.
As we close the show, he is back, our chief economist, Dr. Ted C. Jones. Ted, the clock is ticking, but you have more. Commercial.
So, let's talk commercial real estate. You know, a lot of y'all are investors in commercial real estate. You may invest in your 401ks or other retirement accounts in real estate investment trusts. Very commonly, you may invest in LLCs, limited liability corporations. So let's just talk commercial. And let me give you the good news. 2021, the year 2021 was the largest commercial real estate sales in the history of the United States of America.
2021.
Great news. 2022 was the second best in history. The bad news. Remember my theme this year on my presentations, the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Here it comes.
Yeah. Well, our total dollar volume of sales in the second quarter of this year nationwide compared to the second quarter of last year, it's down 58%. I mean, and the total number of properties sold is down 50%, which means just not the number of sales are down, but prices are dropping. And we are now seeing, for example, we saw, let's just talk offices. Houston is actually one of the top 3 in the country every week on this Castle security card systems. What percent of the workers came to the office at least 1 minute last 7 days? And we're heading that, typically 60% range. Nationwide, it's less than 50%. I kind of wonder, what are we going to do with all this office space? We're going to convert some of it. We're seeing some conversions. It's just not apartments and stuff like that. We're converting everything to lab space and everything else around the country. Colleges, you look at Georgia State University, downtown Atlanta is in office buildings. So we're seeing that change. Now, all real estate, commercial real estate's not down. Our hottest commodities right now, retail is doing extremely well. Why? You got more people working today and making more money than they've ever made. You got money in your pocket, you spend it. And retail has been one of those commodities. Another hot one, industrial. Industrial's been doing great. Industrial, well, you think, wow, I don't do anything industrial. I don't do a machine. I don't buy manufacturing. You buy e-commerce. That e-commerce stuff, the electronic order, doesn't go from that store on Main Street. It comes from an industrial building outside of town, on the edge of town, and it comes to you. And the one that had done relatively well was apartments. But what we've seen is inflation's gone up so much that people have less and less money to spend on their apartments. The Joint Economic Center of Congress says that we're spending the typical household $747 more per month just to buy the same stuff we bought last year, not counting rent.
Wow.
And so what they're doing is we're seeing a lot of people just can't make the rent, particularly on the real high end. We call them Class A office spaces with granite countertops or quartz and floors and what have you like that. But commercial real estate is something for everyone to look at. And remember, you don't have to buy a whole building to own any of it.
It goes hand in hand. Thank you so much, Dr. Ted C. Jones. And Ted, once again, people can find out more about what you're doing.
Just Google Jones on Real Estate. It'll take you to our Stewart.com blog. It's easier to do that than give the actual site. Or go to Twitter or X, whichever one it is. It's the same one, at DRTCJ, and follow me on tweets. And I do not discuss politics, only economics and real estate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ted C. Jones. He is the eighth wonder of the real estate world and a super friend to this show. And thank you all for listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. I am your host, Bill Knapik, together with John Bramlett and all of us at Stewart Title and Stewart Insurance. We appreciate you listening. And as I said at the beginning of the show, simply go to stewart.com/radio. That's right. You can hear this show again, any of the past shows. Go to the Stewart Show archives. In addition, you could also see all the guests right here and what's going on in the studio at stewart.com/radio. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.